Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's. This is a recorded stream. We are on the 20th of December 2024, and I'm joined by Richard Medhurst. It's a really pleasure to have you, Richard, on my stream. It's a really shame that this is the only first time that we speak together, and we're both Syrians, and we have been trying to raise awareness about the Syrian war with different means and with different on different platforms. So I would like to first express my appreciation for the work you did. You have a massive following, and many people listen to what you say, especially during the Palestine conflict. People realize that how important Palestine is, not only for humanity, but also for Syria, which is an extension of the Levant. And this is something that many people do not notice, how these geographies are interconnected and how these conflicts are basically interconnected. They think that this is a separate issue in Syria and it's a separate issue in Palestine. So it's really amazing to have you, especially that you are watched nowadays by the UK Secret Service. They are watching your tweets. I really would like to know how do you feel like you watched and they're looking to your tweets and following your videos and probably this one as well. Meanwhile, British journalists, diplomats, they are meeting with internationally recognized terrorists who has a $10 million bounty on his head. It seems that he's meeting with them in a secret place called the Qasr Shab. It's like everybody knows where his location is. If they want to kill him, they can kill him, but now they're dealing with him.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reward of $10 million bounty on his head in the US. That's true. But HTS, which is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is al-Nusra Front, which is al-Qaeda, is banned in Britain as well. And it's on this list of proscribed organizations, which apparently I was accused of not violating the list, but the law that refers to this list. So that the law is section 12(1)(a), and it criminalizes opinions. It says even the word opinion. And even if you accidentally, if by accident you give the impression that you're glorifying a group on this list, you could go to prison for up to 14 years. So I'm very, very, very confused why I get arrested on the plane at Heathrow, but Jeremy Bowen at the BBC does not, because even if he really despises Al-Qaeda, that's not the impression he gave, is it?
No, he gave him a pushy time.
Exactly. Not to mention the fact that the former head of MI6 was on Sky News. He called them a liberation organization. Yes. Now, if he said those words about, another group on that list, particularly a Palestinian one, he'd be arrested.
Yes.
So they broke the law. I don't think they should be arrested, by the way. I am completely against this law because it basically says free speech is criminal, and it makes it especially difficult for journalists because it's your livelihood to speak, and it puts you in it's such an abstract law that it basically makes you walk on eggshells. You're tiptoeing around. It certainly impeded my work because I don't know. It's really an abstract, weird law because it says that if you do it by accident, and even if you give someone the impression that you support it, well, how could you gauge that? How could you possibly calculate and measure these things? It's Orwellian and absurd because it's meant to be that wide, so that they can just pick and choose who they put in prison and who they silence. So for me, they put me on investigation, and they could charge me at any second, at any moment. And I find it impossible that the Telegraph call HTS
diversity-friendly.
Diversity-friendly jihadists, or that they're called a liberation organization, or that that Jeremy Bowen goes to Damascus and has a good time with his head-chopping pal Jolani, and none of them are even questioned, let alone arrested. Or you come on, like this is so obviously. They're cherry picking the parts of the law that they like, and it's so obviously a vendetta against me and my work. And not to mention the fact that these it's also their way of sending their diplomats off and playing with legal loopholes, because you can't arrest diplomats under the Vienna Convention, but you can call them home. You can certainly say come back to Whitehall. And, you've still broken the law in England, and you're on top of it a representative of His Majesty's government. So you should know better than anyone. and yet they're going and taking photographs with Jolani. The German diplomats also taking photographs with Jolani.
Yes,
So
I see.
I just
I mean,
want to
the special envoy,
hypocrites.
the special German special envoy to Syria, who is now probably going to become the next ambassador. This was 1.5 years ago. He posted a tweet on X, and he celebrated the anniversary of the killing or the death of Abdel Basit Sarut. And Abdel Basit Sarut was an opposition activist who then joined Al-Nusra Front and then joined ISIS. And he's on video basically calling for the extermination of the minorities in Syria. And he's on video singing this Al-Qaeda song celebrating the 9/11 and flying. Huh?
Sorry to cut you off. Where is he from again, this activist? Because I believe I know who you're talking about.
He's from Homs, Abdel Basit Sarut. They call him the goalkeeper of the Syrian revolution, and he got killed a few years ago. And the German diplomat who is now in Damascus, he celebrated his first anniversary and said that he was like an idol of the revolution and inspiration for the Syrian people. And he literally joined ISIS. Like he has a photo himself with an ISIS flag. So if they can go this far in commemorating someone's memory who was part of ISIS, then HTS looks like the cute version of IS, right? Like, but for us in Syria, both of us like same shit, different smell.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, really, how can I even describe it in a better way?
You can't. And I find this so ridiculous because even when I was a child, we were posted in Islamabad in Pakistan, and even then these people, I'm trying not to swear, they were turning the place upside down. They blew up the Egyptian embassy next to my school. I was there. The classroom just suddenly all the windows were blown in, and glass everywhere, and then I mean double suicide bombing. This is Zawahiri, who is Jolani's mentor and Bin Laden's mentor. Tells you everything you need to know. These people have blood on their hands in multiple jurisdictions. Iraq, in Beirut, in Damascus, you name it, they've done it. And the fact that they're glorified by the West tells you everything you need to know about the West.
Yes.
It's revolting.
Actually, today, as I was doing research, I found an Iraqi MP basically saying that Jolani is wanted in Iraq for terrorism charges. Yeah. So if he becomes the leader of Syria, we will not receive him in Iraq. Like they are, he needs to stand in front of court in Iraq. He committed heinous crimes there, like including car bombs, right? So, but he trimmed his beard, and of course without the mustache and everything. And now he's the moderate rebel. Richard, I watched Putin's address yesterday, or this Q&A, and he says he named basically Israel as the main beneficiary of events in Syria. He said, quote, "I have the impression that Israel is not only not going to leave Syrian territory, but is going to strengthen itself there." I mean, I have the same impression that Israel is one of the biggest victors of this, but also Turkey. And it seems to me that Russia isn't ready to name Turkey the way they are naming Israel. Why do you think that is? Like in every statement I saw by Russian diplomats, they don't mention Turkey.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, this is exactly how you should read statements by politicians, particularly those working in the foreign ministry or heads of state, is who they leave out. But the reason they didn't do this, if you recall, Turkey never put sanctions on Russia during this Ukraine war, which is smart of them. I mean, they're caught in the middle geographically, so I'm for all my critiques of Erdogan, he seems to know how to walk a very fine line between being a NATO member and also obviously a country in the Middle East and a Muslim country or a majority Muslim country, and that involves doing a lot of dastardly and cunning things. Politics is a very, very dirty game. But he was very smart not to sanction Russia, because he knows that with BRICS rising, with Belt and Road Initiative, with Turkey's role as a hub, not just for transport but economic as well. They didn't want to anger the Russians, because that's really showing you're being vindictive now, and those countries that did sanction Russia, they ended up regretting it, and we all know this. We saw this coming, and we talked about this, but they of course they don't learn and don't understand. And they're fighting also for a different kind of ideology than Turkey. Turkey has this Ottoman mentality, whereas the West is in power right now, and they're trying to hold on to it and at all costs. And as they get more and more desperate, they start thrashing about. But I'm not surprised Putin didn't name Israel, also because you have a significant Zionist lobby inside of Russia. People always think of Britain and America. They forget that you have one in Russia too. A lot of Israelis are actually originally Russian, and they still have connections to their home country. You also have to remember Russia was, I believe, the first country to recognize the Soviet. The Soviet Union was the first to recognize Israel.
Yes.
And at the same time, they've been a big ally of Syria. So it's always difficult trying to explain Russia's role in the Middle East. They have good ties with Syria, good ties with Israel, and Israel and Syria are enemies. Same thing with Turkey. They've got good ties with Turkey, good ties with Syria. Well, Syria and Turkey used to be enemies. I guess we're under Turkish rule now, at least one half of the country.
Also, so because I think also the Russians are trying to keep their navy in the Mediterranean, and now since Syria has become under like Turkish mandate, they don't want to anger the Turkish side. But I understand Erdogan he's playing smart, and Putin is trying to be cautious with Turkey, because Turkey is like Erdogan, let's say, is a very smart chess player, and he has been maneuvering for a long time, and otherwise he wouldn't have stayed in power for all these years. And I was calculating, it seems that he stayed in power just like Bashar stayed. Like he came in 2002, right? Erdogan's party to Turkey, but he was shuffling between the prime ministry and presidency and changing the constitution all the time, and then calling Assad the dictator. But he stays there in a democratic elections.
I love it. You just have to know how to give the impression of democracy. That's the difference between Arab countries and Arab countries and the West, is that we don't bother with the illusions, and that angers people. They want to live in a fantasy.
Yes, man.
But just about the Navy, I'll remind people that when the war started in Ukraine, Turkey did not close the lanes off to Russian warships.
Yes.
Right? Exactly. There you go. They left that straight open, allowing Russian ships to maneuver. So there is a very, very big consideration to be made for Russia, strategically speaking, when it comes to the Navy, because the people that took power in Damascus, they consider Russia to be an enemy, and logic dictates that they would close down the Russian bases, which have been there since '73, I believe. So I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. I don't know. I'm not going to make predictions about that. I think they might come to some sort of an arrangement, and Putin certainly seems to be pragmatic when he needs to be pragmatic, and more of a realist. And he kind of, I guess there's no choice but to accept, like everybody else, what has happened in Syria, and then do the best for his country now and their interest in the Middle East. Although I would prefer, obviously, that Syrian interests come first before anyone else's, but
I mean, this is something that I would like to tell my colleagues, that people, for example, now say, oh, I condemn Iran or Russia for betraying Syria. And to be honest with you, I see it from a different perspective. I see that Syria is our responsibility. It's not Russia's or Iranians' responsibility. And because of a war situation, also there was so much mismanagement on the Syrian side, so they needed outside support, and because of the also NATO support to these so-called insurgents. But at the end of the day, Syria didn't have much of a choice, and they put all their eggs in the Iranian and Russian basket. And then when the Arabs came back, Assad tried to rebalance and taking some of the eggs from the Iranian side and putting in the Arab side. Like it wasn't really successful, let's say, from the Syrian side. So if anyone should be blamed, I blame first and foremost us, like Syrians. And this is going to be like, I was reading today a post on X by Iran military. I wanted to read it to you and get your impression. He says, collapse of a dream. And this is going to be the title of our today's thumbnail. He says, so far, more than 500 attacks, I think it's now 800 attacks, on Syria's defense and critical facilities have dismantled the country's defensive capabilities, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that Syrians are now free and are tasting the sweet taste of freedom. Today, the free Syria has been divided into 6 parts. with the Druze in the south asking to be annexed by Israel. The towering Mount Hermon overlooking Syria and Lebanon is under Israeli control. Erdogan claims Turkish ownership over cities like Aleppo and Idlib, while the Kurds are pursuing their own secession. Indeed, history repeats itself, first as tragedy, second as farce, but Syria's story is tragicomedy. A scene where the United States and Israel as its directors mock the Syrian people and all Muslims from outside Syria. Is it possible for a people to have witnessed the experiences of Afghanistan, Libya, Sudan, and Iraq in less than 2 decades and still tread the same path? Yes, it is possible.
It is. Yeah, it is, unfortunately. I'm really shocked that people anywhere, to be honest, but especially in Arabs, Muslims, they still fall for this. Oh, he's a dictator, we need to deliver democracy. Dude, there's no one remember Iraq? Because I remember it very, very clearly. And never mind the whole weapons of mass destruction, which they also threw in with Syria, right? So it's the same plan. Call the guy dictator, talk about WMDs, manufacture some atrocities like, what do they say about Saddam? They said he was putting babies in incubators. And then, you know, and this to me is very bad because the Syrian opposition, they would also adopt these lies or help concoct them in the first place. And to me, that shows that these people are just after power. Because if you want to make the country better, you would address real criticisms. Like, you can't deny there was corruption in the country. You can't deny it was authoritarian to a very certain strong degree. You know, and I was just talking about this earlier, that why did it have authoritarianism? How can we address that? And part of that is because Syria is always being attacked. Its interests are everybody else's. You know what I mean? They make them their interests in Washington and London because they want Syria's geographic position as a base. They want its resources. So Syria is always going to be on other people's dinner plates and tables, unfortunately. And it's irresponsible of Syrians not to appreciate their own wealth, because you can have very good or genuine intentions for the country and still be duped, you know, because I think a lot of these people who are cheering for the revolution didn't grasp that, you know, if we go down this path, it's not us that are going to have a say of what Syria becomes like. There are wolves, you know, outside the door trying to get in and eat us. And the ones that end up having strength on the battlefield are not going to be the people that want democracy and human rights. It's going to be ISIS, it's going to be Al-Qaeda, and the ones with backing from America, from the West, because they have lots of money and lots of weapons. And as a matter of fact, they went to very, you know, long, they went to great lengths to take the weapons from Gaddafi in Libya and move them to Syria. So, you know, it's not for nothing that this was the most expensive CIA operation in history. And they have indeed succeeded in balkanizing Syria. And this is not the first time. People forget that Gaza used to be the last piece of Syria before you would enter Egypt. You know, we used to all be one nation in the Levant, and even Syria and Egypt used to be one nation. Several times have been in history under Salah ad-Din, under Nasser. So the West have always seen that as a threat. It's not a threat, but in their minds, when you want to monopolize and control resources, it's a threat in quotation marks. Is, you know, they just don't want people to be united, and so they divide and conquer through sectarianism. They chopped Syria into Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, gave pieces to Turkey, and they made
installed Israel in the middle between Syria and the Levant and Egypt.
There you go, and they stuck Israel in the middle, and now they further balkanized Syria into. It was 4 pieces. I guess now you can indeed consider it 6. Whatever way you want to slice it, no pun intended. But you know, it's really bad that people can't see what's coming. You're talking about who's to blame, and I do blame Syrians to you know, a great extent, or rather, they should not blame, but they should hold the responsibility for this. We've obviously failed with the education of our people in some way, and I would say this about the people in Britain too, and people in America. A lot of people are just ignorant about foreign policy. And what their government is doing, because it's been designed that way on purpose. But you know, Syria has had a great responsibility in the region. You know, and you know, it was the bulwark, it was the last torchbearer of anti-imperialism, and that's. It doesn't mean that it was perfect by any means, but a lot of people are going to suffer because of this, and that includes the Palestinian cause, which some people still don't get.
Yes, but I want to bring an argument from Syria, and people are telling me from Syria, خلاص, stop talking about Israel and Palestine and US and imperialism and CIA and this and that. We just want to live. Like we want to live. We want to lift the sanctions. We want to, secure bread and fuel and this stuff. We don't want to talk about your geopolitical implications. We don't want to think about what's going to happen next. We just want to have a normal life, make peace, and this and that. So I'm also receiving such commentaries from people telling me, you're just having a negative input in this discourse of the conversation. We don't care what Israel thinks. We just want to live.
I mean, they want to kill you. You can't live if you're dead. They want your house. Do they not see the Israeli troops advancing? They're now at 20 kilometers. Even Naftali Bennett, when he was prime minister of just a short while between Netanyahu's departure and return, he ordered them to double the illegal settlements in the Golan Heights.
Yes.
Okay. So even before they took this extra chunk just now, they were already doubling it, and they were already occupying it illegally. I mean, even if no one was living there, who said it should be under Israeli control? Like, if you don't appreciate your land, you don't appreciate your country.
Yes.
I mean, you can't grow wheat. You want to eat bread and have gas and all these things. Guess what? We've got them, but you're not going to get access to them. I mean, come on, it's shocking to have to explain this. It's really basic stuff. You're not going to get it.
I know.
It's not happening. There are greedy people in Washington, in London, in Tel Aviv, who want your bread and want your fuel, and they are going to steal it.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
Richard, when the Gaza onslaught started, I noticed some patterns among Israeli journalists, and when I noticed these patterns, I realized that they are mouthpieces for the Netanyahu government, but unofficially on X and other places. And one of the people which brings, let's say, Israeli perspective into the conversation, his name is Seth Franzman, and he is quoting Gideon Saar. He says, the international community has a role in protecting minorities in Syria, including the Kurdish minority that is currently under attack. He says, good points by Israel's foreign minister here. The fact that the whole world should be talking like him, but so many countries won't even take a look at Eastern Syria or the Kurdish minority. I mean, how can it be more obvious what the Israelis are trying to do in Syria? To present themselves as a protector of the Jews after posing a threat against them by a group that they supported. And once a threat, there is an existential threat against them, you come as a savior against the Druze and for the Druze and for the Kurds. And this is a map that has been circulating again on social media. I'm sure it's not so accurate, but this is how they perceive. Like Israel will have its leverage in the south, the Saudis in Damascus and Homs, and the Turks in Aleppo and Idlib and Hama, the Russians on the coast, and then the Americans here. But in my perspective, since the Americans have...
I love how they made the Russian areas as big as Lebanon, but just because they want to show how
big. Even this map, I think they will be even worse maps than this. That the Israelis will try to open a corridor between Sweda and the expected Kurdistan entity. They want to have this geographical access between these.
Yeah, they already have ties with the Kurdish autonomous region in Iraq. They openly normalized with them, and also look, a word on minorities. I'm sorry, what is this? What is this ridiculous concern for minorities after you help the people that persecute minorities take power? Al-Qaeda, their air force was being run by Tel Aviv. I mean, Netanyahu, did he not take photographs with these Al-Qaeda fighters where he was shaking their hands? And
for humanitarian reasons, Richard, for humanitarian reasons.
Yeah, he was just a little bro fist while you're on the morphine drip. To think these guys have good intentions in Syria while they're committing genocide in Gaza. I mean, this is, I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. I'm really speechless. Because some people are aware the Western media lie and Israel wants to kill Arabs and Muslims. And then when it comes to Syria, they're like, no, reality is upside down over here. Look, man, this axis is definitely in the it definitely seems to be in the cards when it comes to Turkey's agenda and Israel's agenda. When it comes to the Kurds, though, Turkey obviously is persecuting them. That's true. We can't deny that. They were cutting water to these entire areas.
Yes.
And, Syria took in Kurds as refugees before. It took in Palestinians as refugees, Armenians as refugees. It's like I was saying before, it's the mother of the region, not just geographically, but historically and politically. It's always opened its doors and its arms to minorities. And that's why we were saying that if you allow these people to take power in Damascus as they have now, you put these minorities at risk, and not just the minorities, but the very social fabric of the country. There was a very, a social harmony, a sort of coexistence, not tolerance, but coexistence that functioned. Not 100%, but much better than Western countries where they tell you that, oh, we've got democracy and human rights, and then they treat Arabs and Muslims and other minorities and black people like crap. That's not how it was in Syria. Even if you are a minority, you had the same rights, and no one disrespects you, and you just live your life and you're fine. And it's a real melting pot. You know what I'm saying? So they've put that at risk now, and already you could see the two photographs that they released initially with these. The New Revolution flag, and then there was also the flag of Al-Qaeda next to it. Now, obviously, we don't have a problem with the Shahada. We're not talking about the phrase itself, but that particular design is an Al-Qaeda emblem. And Al-Qaeda does not represent Muslims, so even Muslims should be offended by the fact that these people have, who are backed by the CIA, who are backed by MI6, are doing these crimes in their names, and Muslims are the biggest victims of Al-Qaeda. We know this, but they don't even make an effort to hide who is in charge now. The first photograph, and they're showing you that people who are not Muslim or their kind of Muslim. Remember, these are takfiri, Salafi jihadists who think that they represent the true form of Islam, and everyone else is a kafir, including other Muslims. They will kill anyone, and they have behaved like this. We've seen how they ran Idlib and how they ran several parts of the country. So everyone should feel concerned about this, minorities and otherwise.
But that was a phase, Richard. Like as people pass through an emo phase and a rock phase, and you change your music taste. He changes his political taste from blowing up people into becoming a moderate rebel.
Yeah, it's funny that I bet if Assad said those words, they wouldn't accept them, would they? So why do you accept them from Jolani? And who decided that he should be in the presidential palace? Once again, anyone who really wants a democratic Syria and really wants the country to be reformed, or who just cares about it in general, you should be shocked that this guy has moved in like a squatter, like an Israeli settler, into the presidential palace. I think even Jeremy Bowen was asking, what are you doing?
He was, yeah.
You don't just move into the goddamn presidential palace. It's not a suite in a hotel. There's symbolism behind this. There's very clear symbolism that I am the emir in charge now. Well, hold on a second. You haven't even given us a date for these elections before you claim that you're just a caretaker. So it's going down the toilet, down the drain very, very fast, and it's heartbreaking to see. And all those people who thought they're going to get democracy and human rights are in for a very rude awakening. When you make a deal with the devil, and I'm talking about Turkish intelligence and British intelligence and CIA and everybody who helped destabilize Syria, when you make a deal with the devil and you dance with him, you don't get to choose the song or the tune. You think you're liberated now, but just wait till Syria is sucked dry by all these countries, and look how they're not lifting sanctions. So look, I remember there was an interview with Wolf Blitzer, and he was asking Blinken, are the Golan Heights Syrian or are they Israeli? And he said, well, they're going to be considered Israeli as long as Assad is in power. Okay, Bashar al-Assad is gone.
It's gone.
Have you changed your position, Mr.
They
Blinken?
occupied more.
Still the Secretary of State. Yeah, exactly. They took more, and the Americans kept the same position. So, everything we predicted is unfortunately coming true, and Syrians are going to live in an even more miserable state, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I've been watching a video of an Israeli journalist and author. He says that I think he was also a former official. He says he's in touch with HTS. Let's see what he says. There are subtitles.
אני בקשר עם אנשים בכוח הזה, בכירים מאוד. מצידם, אחרי שהם מסלקים את חיזבאללה ואת איראן, הם פותחים שגרירות ישראלית בדמשק ובביירות, ופותחים שגרירות שלהם, של סוריה, בירושלים. ולכן, מבחינתם, ישראל היא הפתרון, היא לא הבעיה.
אתה ממש אומר שאם זה החלטות בידיים שלך, אז אתה מצפה שישראל תהיה אקטיבית בסיפור הזה.
כנגד
הכוחות הסורים, של אסד, כן.
כן, כדי לסייע למורדים, שאני רואה בהם בעצם ידידי ישראל. אני בקשר עם...
So, this is one of which, and this is from the
Kevork, this is wrong. Bashar al-Assad was working with Israel.
Yes.
This is what we keep hearing from the opposition.
Yeah, and this is in the Telegraph. They say U.S. prepared Syrian rebel group to help topple Bashar al-Assad, and they speak to so-called Free Syrian Army officer, and how they received instructions from the U.S. intelligence to get ready and invade Damascus from the south. However, this is the ironic part, and the part which people should cry about it and be infuriated. And then you have people calling all these so-called influencers, and they call themselves Muslim influencers, mostly are American and British. And they say this is a blessed revolution and show your support. And there is only one Syrian in this poster, and she never been to Syria, and she was not even born in Syria. Like there is not a single Syrian in this poster, seriously. And
I think she's the only woman there because she is part Syrian or whatever. I think I wouldn't have put her there otherwise. Oh my goodness. Oh God. I mean, I saw that. I couldn't find a single Syrian, and now you tell me the only one who is part Syrian hasn't ever been to the country. Well,
and this is what is infuriating, that these people now speak about Syria like it's their own, because they say Syria is part of the Islamic Ummah. Therefore, they have the right to intervene in the domestic affairs of Syria. And worse still, these multinational takfiris who came to Syria, they came to liberate the Syrians, Muslims, from the Assad, Alawite, tyrannical regime, blah blah blah, that they used to call. So if somebody from Uzbekistan come to Syria, or from Tajikistan, or from the Uyghurs or Chechnya, this is the same logic of the Zionists, right? Like somebody from Manhattan can come to Palestine and settle there, and because now Jolani says he will give citizenship to them, so then there is the concept of nation state is gone. So we're speaking about an Islamic Ummah now, but the Islamic Ummah doesn't stop in Syria. Palestine is also part of the Islamic Ummah, right? Like as far as I know. Not a single bullet against the Israeli forces advancing inside Syria, 20 kilometers away from Damascus, although Jolani sent car bombs to Aleppo, and he has thousands of soldiers and fighters. But when you say, and when you really try to point and highlight this issue, they say, yeah, but Assad didn't liberate the Golan for 40 years. Why do we expect Jolani to liberate it in a few days? We're not asking him to liberate, at least not to give up more land to the Israelis. And he's like 20 kilometers away from Damascus. He has the higher hills. Any artillery can now bomb Damascus. They don't need an F-16 any longer.
What a disaster. Wahyat Allah. Really, really, really. I know. I was thinking about this. What a disaster. I mean, truly, it is. Calling it a military blunder is absurd. This is on purpose. This is 100% on purpose. Even people who are in a hopeless situation, like when the French got slaughtered at Dien Bien Phu in Vietnam, they would fire back, right? Even in the worst, most hopeless situations in any war, people fight back. They do something. When you're not firing back, and you're allowing the enemy to take land, then you're obviously working with them. And look. Let's be clear about something. When we talk about Syria, Syria functioned perfectly at a societal level with all these groups for thousands of years, because they come from this place. We call it cradle of civilization for a reason. All these monotheistic religions were born and they thrived in Syria, and then they went from Syria to the rest of the world. So trying to there's a phrase, right, in English, we say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So this has worked perfectly. You don't see, holocausts, people putting others in gas chambers in Syria like they do in Europe. and persecuting people on an industrial scale,
Yes.
because we don't have that mentality. You know, there's societal cohesion, there's a respect for one another. Even if someone is a different sect or a different religion, it's fine. Everyone gets along with each other. And they're trying to destroy this formula now. And these are people who have never been to Syria. They don't speak the language. They can barely pronounce the alphabet in Arabic. They don't understand the area. They don't understand the region. And if they really cared about other Muslims, they really care about the Islamic Ummah. There's nothing wrong with that, you know. But you wouldn't be allowing this guy to act as an agent for Israel while it's bombing Muslims and Arabs in Gaza, and you know, going into the Al-Aqsa Mosque during Ramadan and tear gassing people. You're basically clapping for those people, and then saying that you're defending an Islamic cause. No, you're not actually. You're cooperating with people who hate Muslims. That's what's going on. These people like Jolani have killed more Muslims that, you know, than anyone else. They are really on the at the top of the list when it comes to murderers of other Arabs and other Muslims. So
Yes.
these people have no loyalty to their country or their creed or their religion. They are really guns for hire. And if you only need to look at who's backing them to understand the game here, it's got nothing to do with you know, defending Muslims. And honestly, I find it insulting that they think that someone who comes from Chechnya should be given citizenship. You know, it's like Zionism. It's like you said, you know, you can be a settler from anywhere, and because we decide that you have the right faith, you get to have a citizenship. And look, one of the things that I said as a big criticism, for example, of you know, the previous government, is that I'm born in Syria, my mother's Syrian, but I'm not allowed to have Syrian citizenship because they consider that it's only through the father. Now, you know, I personally, I find that to be ridiculous. Like, what's more Syrian than you know, being born there, right, in Damascus? And my parents, they wanted me to be born there on purpose, right, because Damascus is the oldest extant city in the world, and I'm proud of it. And to say that someone from China or from Chechnya who can't even speak the language and came with guns into the country illegally and killed Syrians should be given a passport, and I'm not. What kind of a reform is that for the country? Because there are many people who maybe have a Syrian mother or a Syrian father, who have like Palestinians, for example. They don't get the citizenship because it's to preserve the Palestinian people and give them the right of return when the land is liberated. This is a different strategy, and it makes sense why. But they have equal rights. But everyone else, in my case, for example, who is Syrian and doesn't get it, why don't they reform that? I find this law misogynistic. You're going to tell me like you're less Syrian through the mother than through the father? Come on.
That's true. That's true.
Even the word ummah is derived from the word mother, because so you know, look at the reforms and their priorities. Where's the schools being rebuilt, the hospitals? Where's the you know, there's children who haven't been to school for 13 years. Their education has been on and off. Where are the priorities? They're busy, you know, giving citizenship and doing interviews and meeting spies from other countries. Come on, this is not serious. There's no election date announced. There's no improving, you know, of infrastructure. I find these people to be working against Syria. If anything, they've ceded land to Israel. They have not just ceded land, but given the weapons and given Mount Haramun. I mean, I wish people could understand what kind of a strategic place we're talking about. You know, on Mount Haramun, you have a UN post, and that's the highest actually UN post on the planet, right? Which is a fun fact I want to tell people. My parents used to work in the UN mission in the Golan Heights and in South Lebanon. My father's been there to this UN post on Mount Haramun. I think he's a photo there, and it's just a strategic place in general, because Syria it's in Syria, so it gives you a field of view, a wide field of view, and also you know, it's not just for intelligence gathering, but you can use it, of course, like you were saying earlier, to launch artillery. Now, you know, it's a miracle that Assad was able to hold on to the Golan Heights for that long, with all these countries trying to bomb Syria, sanction Syria, and Israel growing its military capabilities and technology. It's a bloody miracle. So the fact that they not only failed to hold on to it, but gave them the go-ahead to go and take more land and didn't fire at them, these people are collaborators. I mean, what is more treasonous than giving land to the enemy? Screw intelligence. You're giving land. There is nothing more treasonous than that.
Richard, we are talking about, since we talk about this, the foreigners who come to Syria, and the argument is Syria has been an Islamic state for like 1400 years, basically. And my problem with this argument is that history doesn't start there. Like there was a history before that too. So Syria is not like is a land exclusively for the Muslim people. Islam and Muslims were part of the rich Syria civilizations, and they have passed through Syria, and they have established their later an Ottoman Empire, an Umayyad, an Abbasid. Like there were many components of Islam passed through Syria as well. So I am wholeheartedly happy that Islam has passed through this region and they have left their civilization. But this is not exclusive for them. But me and you, for example, because you're born a Christian, I'm born a Christian. Now I'm receiving a criticism, and your name is also mentioned in this criticism. This is a comment I received after the last stream, and the name of the person is Emir. He says, Kevork, Richard, and the Syrian girl, the three stooges. Syria has been Muslim land for 1200 years, except for the past 100 years when France and other Western powers stole it and installed a puppet minority dictator to rule over the Sunni Muslim majority through brutal force. In what world does that make sense? Kevork speaks from the perspective of an immigrant to the land, whose family migrated there 50-60 years ago, living under the puppet regime the French installed. He is commenting on the crimes or police raids which happen in every country. Right now, they are working on setting up a government structure and trying to get sanctions lifted. This is just a Karen-level panic. For the longest time, people like Kevork have been spreading nonsense in Europe, claiming everyone is being beheaded. It's the same as Zionist propaganda.
I don't know where to begin. I mean, if you want to look, I don't like to go down this road, but you know, that's precisely why I say Syria should be secular. But if you want to go down this road, Syria was Christian before it was Muslim.
Yeah.
And people should be proud of that, you know, because it shows how old the nation is, and it shows that it's as we say, the cradle of civilization. You know, it spread. Christianity came to Europe from Syria. You know, it's even a phrase, the road to Damascus. You know, everyone knows the story. It's in the Bible, straight street, right where Bashar is. I've walked it a million times, and you know, there's also a church, Hananiah, I think.
Hananiah,
yeah, underground there, and you know, I mean, this people used to pray there. Christians were praying there for, you know, 2,000 years ago. I mean, you can't say that history is erased, because then even if you're saying that as a Muslim, you're denying a part of your own country's heritage, and that just doesn't make sense. Yeah. You know, Syria has so many empires have come and left relics there, have left sites and structures. You know, whether we're talking about Palmyra, whether we're talking about you know, Aphemia, where the Greeks were, whether we're talking all over the country. And I guarantee you, in hundreds of years from now, we will be digging up new civilizations in Syria that we haven't even heard of yet.
Yes.
So it's truly, you know, and as Christians, and I know you share this sentiment, we are really proud of Syria's Muslim heritage. We are proud of all of its history, because it has been that uniting motherly, you know, ummah, that uniting a nation that bound all of the Levant together, and you know, had a lot of impact on the rest of the world. I don't know why someone would write that, and it feels to me like it sounds like something someone who is not Syrian would say. You know what I mean? Who might be Muslim, but it doesn't speak Arabic, has no ties to the region, because it's really we do unfortunately have a lot of people who have been brainwashed into sectarianism in Syria now. We do.
Yes.
But this kind of line you hear a lot of the times from foreigners who never been to Syria, don't speak Arabic, and they've kind of been raised in a sectarian way, and that's not good. I mean, that's not how society functions. You know, in Syria, we are used to going over to a friend's house to break bread on, you know, in Ramadan when it's sundown for ftur. I mean, for iftar, and then they will come over on Christmas. I mean,
yes,
this is the kind of lifestyle we're used to, and you don't ask someone their religion even. You know, it's considered rude. You can guess sometimes from the name, you know, someone's Christian or not, but no one harasses you or asks you and makes an issue out of it. And that's what we're used to. And the proof is that for, like I said, thousands of years, you've never had the European level or European style of industrial persecution that has happened against minorities inside and outside of Europe by you know what I mean? Because they want to make it seem like, oh, Muslims and Christians don't get along with each other, which is really not true. It's we get along fine if we're left alone. It's you know, and even the Jews in Syria were there till the 1990s, and they were only taken to Israel and America because they kept pressuring Syria to do it.
Yes,
you had Jews in
they
Iraq,
said they want to multiply, and al-Assad allowed back then Bill Clinton to evacuate many of the Jewish people from Syria because their extended families are in the U.S. or in Israel right now, and this was a gesture from al-Assad to show that he's interested in the negotiations for the Golan Heights. So he presented something for the Americans, that the goodwill gesture that he wants to engage in a peace talks, for example. But if I want to use the same logic of these people, the sectarian people, right, and I don't want to use their logic, this is not my logic, I'm just reversing their logic now against them. I want to show the people this map. So this is the Armenian Empire under the Khan the Great, and this has extended, as you can see, to
chopped up a million times by Turkey.
So this was born on 140 BC, and so the Armenian presence in the region goes back before Christianity itself. And my
Christian too. He went.
And my grandparents didn't arrive 50 years ago in Syria, 110 years ago. So 4 generations ago, we were in Syria. But if I want to reverse this logic now against them, since I'm just a refugee, an Armenian refugee, I think we could also say that these Chechens and Uyghurs who came to Syria only 10 years ago, they're also migrants and refugees, right? I think we lost your voice. So from one side, I am receiving backlash or criticism that I've been a refugee and a migrant since 110 years ago in Syria. But all these multinational, let's say, Takfiris who came to Syria, they're part of what they call the Islamic Ummah. How does that even make any sense? And the Armenian presence in Kilikia, in the Levant, goes back to over 2,000 years. But this Takfiris coming from other regions now to Syria, I just want to see if. No worries, Habibi. I just wanted to say, like, my grandparents arrived 100 years ago as refugees, yes, but the Armenian presence in the region goes back in Kilikia and Anatolia for hundreds of years, 2,000 years ago. And if I'm going to reverse this logic against them, then what about these Chechen and Uyghur and Uzbek Takfiris? They want to give them Syrian citizenship, but myself, I'm now considered a refugee in their eyes. You know, like, it's so ridiculous how.
Can I be honest with you? I have never in my life, I never heard such you know, an argument or an insulting thing like that until the civil war or this revolution.
Me too.
Syria
Me too.
began.
Yes.
And about halfway through. Wahayat Allah, like, I've been up and down Syria. I never heard a human being talk like this.
Yes, me too. 100%.
Like, who's spewing this nonsense and this poison? Honestly, it's wild. It's really wild.
Yeah. I lived most of my life in Syria. I was born in Aleppo, worked in the industrial zone with the Muslims, and my father served in the military with the Muslims. I went to university with the Muslims. At no point anyone told me anything like this. But once this so-called revolution started, the argument that I received the most, or the criticism that I received the most from the anti-Assad people, was this exact same point. You're Armenian. Go back to Armenia. Don't interfere in our affairs. Like, there was this TV channel called Orient TV. They have made a 5-minute video segment about me, and basically saying 100 years ago, Kevork Almassian's grandparents arrived to Syria without sandals, and they were poor, and they were thirsty, they were hungry, and we.
Genocide.
Yes,
Yeah,
and and the reportage says that we, the Syrian people, fed his parents and protected him, and now he's turning against us, the Syrian people, so they make me look like a real demon. Whereas the fact is, when our grandparents arrived to Syria from the genocide, they were received and protected by their grandparents, who were also persecuted by the Ottoman Empire. So it's them who turned against the legacy of their grandparents, who were tolerant, and they protected us in Syria, and they aligned themselves with the new Ottoman Turkey. Like it's
yes, exactly. That hatred, you know, honestly, to me, this smells like a Turkish intelligence operation, because
yes,
this hatred against Armenians, they're trying to manifest it through Syrians by brainwashing them with this crap. And again, we don't do this with asking someone what their religion is, or saying that they're not. I never heard this.
I think Richard is having yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying that people like to call the United States the melting pot.
Richard. Today, Richard's internet is from Syrian connection. He's using the Syrian internet connection for sure. But I was so happy to have him, man. Like, I'm so ashamed that I have not had him before on Syriana Analysis. And we're already past 52 minutes of this live streaming and conversation together. And I will definitely post another live streaming next Monday, 23rd. But the 24th and the 25th, I think then I will take some vacation for 10 days. I'm also having a guest, so it would be also my family time, let's say, or the Christmas, Sylvester, we call it Sylvester, but the New Year time here. It would be amazing to spend time with the family, and also a little bit relax my head, because this was crazy what was happening in the past weeks, and I was working like overtime, let's say, to deliver to you what's happening in my country, where I belong, and where my belonging is, where my roots are. I don't care what the people say about me. I know genuine, deep inside my heart that I love this country and the people, and I'm genuine in what I do, and everything I say or I write, it's intended with good intentions, let's say, and intended for the good of the people. At some point, maybe I hit and sometimes I miss, but overall, those are my intentions. Richard Habibi, I was just, I think you're using now a Syrian internet or something on your side.
No, but
Habibi.
I just wanted to say that people call America the melting pot and try to portray it as being inclusive, but you know, obviously they hide the fact that, you know, they genocided the natives, they enslaved black people, and you still have racism in that society and inequality to this day. Syria, when I say it's a melting pot, I really mean that in the most positive and real,
Yes.
realist of senses. And if you claim, you know, Syrian Armenians, again, what a weird phrase. I've never even said that, which goes to show you how we don't think like this. But if you're going to claim that they're not Syrians, well, then this applies to Palestinian refugees, right?
Yes.
But you don't hear them saying that, and that shows that they have a problem, I think, with Christians. I think,
yes.
You know, and it leads back to the sectarianism and shows you why it's poisonous to society. And you know, again, it's just. It's not only ahistorical and childish, but like you said, they're rejecting their own grandparents' legacy and the country's legacy as a whole, which has always taken victims of genocide and persecution.
Yeah, I don't use this term like loosely, and I don't like throw these accusations like this, like racism, but I think there is also part of it. Yeah. Like, for example, when Azerbaijan attacked the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh, I've seen many of these people celebrating Azerbaijan's ethnic cleansing, not knowing that later Azerbaijan is going to send the gas and energy. 40% of Israel's energy supplies are from Azerbaijan. So the 40% of Israel's war machine is operated by Azerbaijan.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
These people are their own
get
enemies.
All this stuff from
when he comes back, I will try to wrap up this wonderful conversation with Richard. He had this connection issue, that's why we recorded it. And unfortunately, guys, if you're posting now live chat, I can't like interact and reply to you as quick as I can or answer to your questions. This was recorded today and it's being broadcasted now on Syriana Analysis. As I mentioned, next week I'm going to, on Monday, do another live streaming on the 23rd. And after that, I'm going to take vacation till the 5th of January or so. Richard Habibi.
I'm so sorry.
No worries. I was just trying to wrap up and tell the people that I was ashamed. I should be ashamed for not having you previously on Syriana Analysis. This was an amazing conversation with you. From a Syrian to a Syrian, I know that our belonging is to Syria. And I know that we come from a genuine and position and we have goodwill. Sometimes when we say things critically, we say critical things because we care about the people and not because some people think because we are minority, we're Christian. No, we want the best for all the people. That's why we're pushing against the Israeli project. It's like, because if we wanted to only think about ourselves, then we could become Christian Zionists and tell the Israelis and the Americans, come and support us. We're under threat. No, this is not what we do. But these people do not really function well, do not understand our intentions. But
they don't, unfortunately. Well, but that's why you need to keep doing what you're doing and educating people about Syria, its history, and it's very important. Like you pointed out, the connection between Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Israel. They cooperate together. They give the Israelis fuel and then get weapons in return. And no doubt they're cooperating as well on propaganda and in intelligence matters and spewing this kind of nonsense to fracture Syrian society. At the end of the day, that's the goal. It's balkanize it, slice it apart, divide and conquer. So instead of focusing on liberating Palestine and Syria, now we're fighting amongst each other about who's the real Muslim and who's the real Syrian, and which is really just utter nonsense. And at the end of the day, the ones that are actually truly invading us who are coming thousands of kilometers in tanks and ships and planes to bomb us and kill us, we're just letting them, stay there and steal resources. I mean, come on, we need to shake things up and wake people up, honestly.
That's so true. That's so true. Thank you so much, Richard, for this conclusion. I also would like to thank all the audience who are watching this. This was recorded, but I'm going to broadcast it now. So people, if you're sending live chat, unfortunately, I was not able to respond to you, but we were going to do last live streaming on the 23rd before it's Christmas time and New Year. I'm going to take some family time. Of course, it goes without saying that all the links of Richard are in the description below, including the X account. And are you posting now on YouTube, Richard, or you're in a critical mode, right?
Yeah, I'm still under investigation. They watch and read everything I say, so it makes it difficult to work. But I'm trying to, I'm trying to do as much as I can, and I'm writing a book also on cybersecurity.
Nice. We will be everybody. When you publish this book, I will have you once again, and we discuss a little bit this book, and also we promote it to the people so that they also can read it.
It's going to change everything because we don't have. There's some magnificent things out there, but they're not well explained, and we need them as journalists, and just people in general need them. So I hope it will help.
Guys, go follow him on X, so when he publishes the book, you can also purchase it for sure, so you can stay in touch. So we will see you next week. Peace be upon you, upon your families, and peace be upon you, Richard. See you soon.
Thank you.